back with another video breakdown. Trey Scotti is with me again. And Trey, appreciate you returning after the holidays. Hope you had a good holidays. Speaking of this Xavier team, they had an interesting situation here over the last few weeks because they had kind of a normal holiday break. And in addition to that, they had a first week bye as it worked out with their Big East schedule. So they had kind of one game in a span of about 2 weeks, gave them a lot of extra practice time. So I think for today's conversation, maybe that's a good place to start this off is how do you think they've put that time to use and what do you think they've been doing over that stretch?
Yeah, well, it's a great point, and we obviously have talked a lot about Xavier putting in the post trap at certain times in the year, and we dove into the practice time that something like that takes. Right, it's not as simple as drawing it up in a timeout. For any adjustment you want to make, and so I think number one, it gives your coaching staff time to think. Right, you send your players home, you kind of digest a little bit, and really just going to kind of sit there. And I'm sure coaches have games on the TV and they really start making maybe a phone, maybe they want to put something in that they haven't before. They may call a coaching buddy that, hey, I saw you guys had this press and what are the rules or how'd you practice it? And it just gives you more time to breathe as opposed to playing on a Wednesday and then a quick turnaround to a Saturday. If you play on a Wednesday and a Saturday, that Wednesday night, the coach is watching the film of that game. And then they're on to the next scout the next day, while also you're on Thursday practice, you're reviewing, this is what we did good on Wednesday, here's what we need to get better at, while simultaneously preparing for that game on Saturday. So there's not a lot of time for maybe big adjustments to your team. Obviously, you may adjust how you're playing in the next game based on their style of play. But having such a big break from December 23rd to January 3rd, it really allows you to kind of sit back and almost like a mid-season review of where you're at, things you want to change. And in the Villanova game, we saw a lot of changes systematically, what they were doing on both sides of the ball, personnel wise, some things that I think are going to continue to stick with their team. And it was just fun to watch the game and see what they're doing a little bit differently. So,
all right, well, jumping into the clips, you want to start off with some of those things that we saw?
Yeah, like we said, they made a lot of adjustments, and I think the first thing that I really want to talk about today is the post trap, right? And we've talked a lot about it. They've used it at different times. They really brought it out in the Houston game, and we've seen it at little points in times throughout since then, right? And Villanova, right? We know a lot about Eric Dixon. Feels like he's been there a million years. Really good player. And this is the first possession of the game, right? And I think a team like Villanova, number one, they may be expecting the post trap or they want to know. So first play of the game, they're going to go into him. One, he's a really good player. Two, they probably want to see exactly how Xavier's going to guard it. And so we saw this right off the bat. Xavier went in on Dixon on the first dribble from the closest defender. So you see Desmond Claude, he's guarding Jordan Longino in this clip. He's digging in his gap. As soon as Dixon puts his ball down, he's going. Right? You'll see his man again. Longino's on the wing. When he goes to the trap, Quincy he's the next closest guy. He takes Claude's guy. Xavier's going to get into a little bit of a rotation. On this clip, Dixon tries to finish it. Unsuccessfully does not. Xavier gets the rebound. First trap against him, things go pretty well. Again, here's him again on the other side of the floor. Okay? Again, first dribble, trap. Right? Here's Oliveira. He's the closest guy when the trap occurs. His guy kind of cuts to the weak side, which kind of works in Xavier's favor a little bit because number 0, he's cutting through the paint. I believe that's TJ Thamba. He's not wide open, right, because he's cutting away. Again, he's able, Dixon, to get it out of that trap quickly. They end up reversing. They get a pretty good 3, right? So analytically, you're going to say, hey, they didn't score on that. But, is that a shot Villanova may take? That's a pretty good 3 on a reversal. Again, it doesn't hurt them from a point standpoint, but that's something probably each coach is thinking about as the game is going along. Here's another one. Again, first dribble, Quincy Oliveira. He's the closest guy to it. Okay. Again, now it's tough. You see Gitas, he's kind of on the Big East logo. He's probably that next closest defender who's his job to rotate. Again, it's not always cookie cutter spacing. And what I mean by that is this. If Gitas, he's on the Big East logo, if his player that he's guarding is on the top of the key from 3, he's probably got a nice little easy rotation. But just that little cut, okay, kind of gets him back on his heels. ends up giving Dixon a pretty good pass, and boom, that's a 3, right? And you'll see Villanova more times than not, they probably want to post Dixon on the right side of the floor, right? He's a lefty. He's a lefty. So anytime he gets into a hook shot on this side of the floor, it's going to be with his left hand, which is his strong hand. Okay. So like a guy like Zach Freemantle, he can go over both shoulders. He's unique. He can post up both sides of the floor. Guy like Dixon, he's going to be heavy left hand, heavy right shoulder, right? So just pretend he was going up for a hook shot there. He'd be going on his right shoulder there through Gianni. But again, instead of a left-handed hook shot, he's able to pass it out with his left hand, which is a strong hand, right? So again, he may be in a better scoring position or a better passing position if you're Villanova in this situation. So again, yes, when Xavier practices this, there's probably a certain alignment on the floor with their practice team. Villanova is just that little cut. It leads to a wide open 3. Okay. Now we're back on the right side. Again, look at Trey Green. He's just kind of waiting. He's kind of waiting for that first dribble. He's kind of on his toes. First dribble comes. Okay, now he's there. Okay, he gets on him. Pretty good rotation by Xavier, right? They cover up all the closest passes, right? They kind of do a good job of leaving the ones farther away. And you can see Dixon on that side of the floor. He's not as comfortable throwing it out with his right hand, right? One, there's nobody wide open. Number two, if that's on his left hand, is he able to find that guy in the corner of the opposite wing? You'll see some teams, Xavier does not do it this way, but you'll see some teams, they'll only trap players on certain sides of the floor because they only want them to be able to pass out with their weak hand. And in this case, Xavier's deciding either side of the floor on the first dribble. If Eric Dixon's posting, we're coming after him. So pretty good job there on that possession. Again, here's another one. Kind of speed to the possession here. Gets back to his stronger side, which is the left. He faces up. Okay, it's kind of like, is this a post up? Is it a drive? He goes into a post up, and they go on the first dribble again. And again, you'll see here, look at how easily Dixon just kind of, okay, trap coming, no problem. I got the ball in my left hand. I'm just kind of driving around this. I'm passing. Again, that's a pretty good quality look for Villanova, depending on who that shooter is there. Same thing. Okay, he's dribbling to a post. Oliveri, like they just kind of decide the gray area, we're taking it away, and he's able to kind of get it out quickly. Like Claude's job in this situation, right? And again, it's hard. His guy's cutting up, but when Oliveri goes, he's got to take away this next pass. More than likely is likely Xavier's scheme. Again, I'm not at the practices, but I'm guessing they want to take away that pass just to not easily evade. Again, Villanova does a pretty good job getting out of there, but at the end of the day, they end up not being punished. They did trap Jordan Longino, number 15, but you'll see they played other players straight up. So here's a post up here. Again, no trap. Here's a post up here. I'm sorry, this one is Longino versus Green. They decided not to trap this one. Again, not really sure when they weren't trapping Longino. Here's Longino again. You'll see right away, Usman, he's coming from the opposite side. He's trapping. Okay, pretty good trap. Pretty good rotation. Again, you got a contested 3 from Eric Dixon. That's probably pretty good defense there by Xavier. Here's Longino again. Again, they trap. So one possession they didn't. 2 possessions they did. You know, I can't tell you. Maybe that was just an error, right, by the players forgetting when not to. That happens within a game, right? But they've done that. I have this one clip in here against Kadari Richmond. You'll see here, right? We showed all these clips. They're trapping on the first bounce. Here against Kadari Richmond, look at, they're right there. They're trapping from the bottom side. So this is not Quincy Oliveri. He's the closest passer, right? We saw that's what it was against Villanova. In this situation, they're trapping from the bottom side on the catch. And that's just to kind of show you, number one, they didn't want Kadari Richmond to get the ball wherever he wanted in the mid post, right? Really, really good player inside the 3-point line, one of the best in the Big East. But secondly, there's different ways to do it. Right. This is, you had to have different ways to practice it. Your players have to be aware of what you're doing. And again, you're mixing it up game to game. And part of the reason you have time to do that, right, is you have this big layover that we talked about in between games, because it'd be easy there to sit there on a clipboard and say, we're going to mix it up constantly and keep the defense guessing. It's a whole nother thing for you to execute it, your players to execute that. So that's kind of the balance.
Trey, coaches hate going to a zone defense. I shouldn't say all coaches hate it, but a lot of coaches are really resistant to like switching defenses or going to a zone defense because they don't want to give up a quick 3 by doing something their players aren't as used to. As we're watching this and you're showing some clips where you are giving up wide open threes kind of, or very good looks at three. Are you having the same type of conversations? Do coaches feel similarly resistant to using a post trap like that for the same reasons? Or is it easier because you feel like you're deficient at guarding the post usually when you're doing something like this?
I think it's exactly what you're saying, right? We see the Houston game where they came out and they popped in a couple threes right away and they got away from it. But the hard part is you don't have a large sample size, right? So when you're talking, let's say they trap Villanova 14 times in the post. I'm making up that exact number. Like if they scored 20 points, which would be a really good points per possession number, did they get lucky on a couple? Now if you have 100 possessions of your post traps throughout the season, and let's say they're tracking data on that, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. The NBA definitely tracks numbers like that with all their analytics teams. It's like now you have a footprint for, okay, this is something we're not good at. Maybe we need to change how we're post trapping, right? Like we saw the different ways to do it, or maybe we need to get away from it as a whole, right? I would definitely think that's something they're talking about at halftime of games and timeouts. Maybe there's one coach in particular that's kind of assigned to tracking how that's going or implementing that, or that could just be like a Sean Miller call. But I would be shocked, right, if that's not something they're tracking throughout the game. In this game, and they stuck with it, right, for a lot of it. So they obviously, we see they miss some of the shots, and sometimes, right, you're like, okay, they're getting good shots, but it's not Eric Dixon, so maybe they live with that too. That could be part of the decision. So, we also saw a little bit of a 1-2-2 press. They trapped on the ball here a little bit. This could be for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think we know Xavier's pretty good in transition offense. Okay, Claude very good in transition. I'd say Davion McKnight is elite. He really pushes the ball effectively. He really gets in the middle third of the floor. Oliveri is pretty good in transition as well. It could be a way to get a guy like Trey Green some easy looks. And Dalen Swain as well, very good in transition. So I think part of the 1-2-2 is, number one, can you create some turnovers? And then number two, a lot of times teams will press with the hope of kicking some time off the shot clock, right? So again, here they get beat to the sideline, not ideal. Excuse me. Ball gets in there. They don't get hurt. They don't score, but that's a pretty good quality look for Villanova against the press. Right here, again, you'll kind of see it's a little bit of a soft trap. Okay, now they go after him. Okay, again, now they didn't get a steal, but a lot of times this is kind of what you're thinking as a worst-case scenario. The shot clock's now at 21. Villanova has, they have more or less time to run their stuff. Now, again, for a shooter to get that wide open, that's not ideal, right? But in a perfect world, if you don't get the steal, you match up, now you're playing 20 seconds, right? So as I say that, like everybody's thinking, well, why would everybody not do that? Well, this clip is why. Yes, it's a great idea in theory, but this is not what we've seen Xavier do all season. This hasn't been their bread and butter, is a 1-2-2 press. And so again, you can see there's just a split second of indecision. Who's guarding who? They give up a wide open three. Again, I'm sure they practiced that over the next couple of those last days. They said on the telecast, they talked about the press specifically. They said they were working on this in shoot around, right? So I'm sure they worked on it as soon as they got back from Christmas break. It's probably an idea that Miller decided to execute over that time when the guys are gone. They're practicing it, and it's something they're probably reviewing the day of, in a shoot around, because it is such a new concept. So there's some times it looked good. There's some times it didn't in this game. Again, here, Villanova gets the ball over. Okay. Xavier does a better job now. Now they're back to 5-on-5. It's 20 seconds on the shot clock. That's kind of more what you're hoping for in a situation like this, right? Again, we see another post-trap situation. And again, now I show this clip in particular, and I type post-trap on the comments. It's like you've got two new concepts in one play. You've got the 1-2-2 press. You've got the post-trap. And you can kind of see, right, there's a lot that players have to think about that they haven't been doing all year whenever you're adding this many things as once. It can be tricky to get all this as a player and execute it at a high level.
Yeah, and it looked like Dalen was maybe a step late coming down on that post trap too, because he recognized it maybe a half second too late.
Exactly. And again, I show this clip again. This is the one their broadcasters, they legitimately, at this point in the game, like, hey, they were working on this and shoot around today, which definitely adds up to me, right? Here, right, okay, now you're down one. You can see there's a little bit more pressure. You're down one with 80 seconds left in the game. You're more than likely trying to create a turnover. Xavier does a great job getting the trap right across half court, which, again, that's third grade, fourth grade basketball. You don't want to pick up the ball on that side of half court. In that corner, you have the half court is a defender out of bounds. He's close to the corner. Really good trap here by Xavier to force a timeout. And again, yes, we could talk about earlier, Rick, there's the wide open three or late on the post trap. But what this does is when you get to a situation in the game where you need the 1-2-2, you have it in your bag and you've been practicing it, right? So, yes, you've given up the three earlier, but now when you're late in the game and you're down 1 with 80 and you maybe want to speed it up to create a couple extra possessions down the stretch because you're down, your players have some familiarity with it. So, yes, there's the tax to pay that you're going to give up maybe some shots you don't ordinarily want to, but at the same time, as a coach in the back of your mind, you want to have these things at your disposal. I was listening to some football stuff the other day, and they were talking about why they always throw bubble passes when they don't work. And one coach said, well, you want the defense to cover all parts of the field, right? Well, when you show these different defenses, one, you force the offense to, they got to now practice different press offenses, post-trap offenses. And then again, at the end of the game, like I said, you're ready to go with these different situations. So even though it doesn't always work in the moment, it does have some value in the back end. Other thing I wanted to show, more offense through Quincy. And, I think he's been playing pretty well offensively. He's been shooting the ball better. He's had some really big games. And if you think about some of Xavier's biggest wins, he's really had a huge offensive output. And so I'm just going to kind of roll these clips here. But a lot of clips that we saw ran for Desmond Claude early in the season, not all of them, but we're starting to see some of them. Go to Quincy. Again, that's an action we saw early in the year for Claude, as is this one. He scores on the first one. This one, they don't get anything. Right. But we're starting to see more offense go through him from the sets from Coach Miller. Here's one against a zone. We talked earlier in the year. Coach Miller said, hey, listen, we're not all the way there with our zone offense. You see here's a quick hitter from zone that we didn't see early in the season. And this just kind of comes with getting into months of the year, right? Like you're going to add to your zone offense. You're going to add to your man offense. You're going to have more plays, especially with a team full of new guys like this, right? They want to get their general concepts down. You got to be good at what you're good at. But you'll see they'll start to get better in those situations with more practice times, reps, film, etc. I showed this clip. This is a box stagger that they've been running all season for Quincy. They've gotten a lot of threes out of this. Okay, so you'll see here in this out of bounds under, he starts on the left block. As the ball's inbounded, he's just getting a stagger screen here. Like I said, he's hit some threes on this. This has been a good play for them. On this one, he just gets an advantage. He drives it for a layup, right? That's something they've run all year. Now, as a coach, you start to play with him a little bit more in different situations. You'll see it here in the box, right? You have Swain lined up on the far away block. So in the last play, Quincy was on the weak side block. On this play, he's more on the weak side elbows where he starts before this clip goes in. Now it's Swain. So it looks like it's going to be a stagger screen like we've seen for Quincy, right? And so again, you're like, okay, well, they haven't really run a lot of staggers for Dalen Swain to get a three. So you see here, Swain curls the first one. Quincy comes off the second one. It's just a little addition to the play. He doesn't make it, but it's a good set. And again, it's just a little bit more evidence that they're looking to add things to their playbook. You're basically layering plays, right, to try to get your shooter shots. And so as an opponent scout, let's say you're a Seton Hall assistant and your scout is Xavier, and you see them line up in the box and you see Quincy on the block, you're probably yelling to the guy, hey, listen, he's probably coming off a stagger. There's a good chance he's coming off a stagger. Now all of a sudden he lines up on the elbow as opposed to the block. They don't know what's coming. You have those little, intricacies throughout the season. Was that a one-time play? Will we see that more? I don't know. But just a general observation, right? We're seeing more and more plays ran for Oliveri. So this one I didn't put in a title slide, but I thought this was really the most unique thing that we saw from the Villanova game, and it really made a difference at the end of each half. And so in this situation, Rick, there's 23 seconds on the shot clock. We're end of half. Right. And so a lot of times teams that just play their man, Villanova's going to tell their guys they want one shot. And on average, right, the analytics, let's say your team averages 1.1 points per game. Well, if you were to average what's the score for the rest of this half, okay, Rick, what would you say, right? If Villanova has the ball, no shot clock, they average 1.1 points possession per game. On average, what's going to be the score for the rest of the half? What would you say?
35 to 29.
35 to 29. Exactly. So they're going to win the rest of this half by one more point, right? It wasn't supposed to be a trick question.
So we don't do public math here.
We don't do
Try.
public. I
Yeah.
apologize.
Yeah.
I apologize. But here you see a diamond, right? And so they're in a little bit of a junk defense. I don't want to say junk as if it's bad, but it's not their go-to, and they're looking to force a steal. So the rationality here is this. Okay, we want to force a turnover or a quick shot. Why? Because let's say Villanova's points per possession is 1.1. Well, if they shoot the ball on the clock with 1.1, or if they shoot something on the clock with 16 seconds, and they score their average of 1.1 per game per half or per possession, now you get the ball back and you get another chance to score. So if your average points per possession is 1.1, you even the odds for the rest of the half, right? So yes, and in a perfect world, you want to get a steal here, but even if you give up a shot, the logic is you're getting another possession and you're just playing the numbers for the rest of the half. So I really like this move from Xavier here. Again, you see a trap on the ball. They start in a diamond. Ball gets inbounded. Swain, again, they use him right on as the inbounder defender with all of his length. He's attacking that first pass for a trap. That guy throws it off balance. Again, I don't know what the call was there, but we see the same play again. Very next play, 2 seconds off the clock. They trap it again. They get a rotation. They get a steal. So now that 1.1 per possession for the rest of the half is erased. Xavier has the ball. Now the odds are flipped in their favor for the rest of that half. So I thought that was a really good move. Then we see it here at the end of the game. Okay, now you're down 1. Same sort of situation. You don't just want to burn 30 seconds of clock. Let them milk it down because, again, even if they don't score, like that's still a win for you if you're Xavier. But if they score and take 30 seconds off the shot clock, that's the perfect possession for Villanova. And they're a team that they are very good at operating the end of the shot clock. They've always been known to play slow, milk the shot clock, and score at the end of it. So here we see Xavier go diamond again, end of the half. Quick trap. Okay. Force a turnover, I believe, on this one. Yeah, and they're running. So this was high. This was executed at a high level. And again, we've seen the press. We've seen the different way to post trap. Now we've seen this. We're seeing it. We've seen more offense for Oliveri. We're seeing a lot of different things that take a lot of practice time, right? These are not 5-minute practice segments. These are 15, 20-minute segments a couple of times during the week, probably during the shoot around. You're obviously reviewing plays you've had in before. You obviously want to still be a good man-to-man defense. You obviously still want to be good in your flow. There's a lot to do, but again, it just goes back to the amount of time that I think we saw in between games and a lot of the wrinkles we saw. And without that diamond, right, they maybe, I know they had some really good shots to win it there at the very end. They may not even have those opportunities. So just some of the things that I saw from that, and it'll be interesting to just continue to track what they're doing as we go forward.
So with that diamond, would you say that's similar to the concept of the same diamond press that 3rd and 4th grade teams run, where you're basically just trying to get the ball in the corner and then trap it immediately?
On the sideline?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're not doing the length of the court
like
you would in the
bit.
press, but you would just condense it all down into the half court, sort of?
A little bit. Yeah, I'm struggling to remember, Rick, what game. I want to say it was Providence during the COVID season. We had something very similar and we actually won the game, forcing a couple turnovers that way. And there was another one. I can't remember off the top of my head. I want to say it was a home game during that same season where we had a similar sort of diamond. And again, it ended up changing the game. And so those kinds of things can burn you, right? Because if your guy, it's a new thing and you could give up a layup because your guys aren't used to it. Like we saw in that press clip, they got a wide open 3, or you can look really good and force the turnover. But yeah, they were kind of denying a little bit there for Xavier. But it looked like they still wanted to trap the first pass. The one that I've seen, I'm more familiar with, they kind of, exactly as you allude to, let it in, and it's a quick trap. But again, that's not to say you couldn't deny and still trap the first pass and stuff like that. And a little bit, it's just kind of like, again, I say junk defense in the fact that you're just kind of like throwing some crap on the wall. You're trying to, but Xavier has the athletes to do that, right? I mean, they are athletic on the wing, and I think you're seeing Sean Miller and staff try to utilize that a little bit, and if nothing else, create some transition opportunities. But again, it comes in awfully handy down the stretch of these close games to throw these wrinkles, because again, we haven't seen that to this point in the year unless I missed that. And so guess who else hasn't seen it? Villanova. So they're not prepared for that. And now, for these next games, UConn, they're sitting there. Now they got to have in the back of their mind, are we going to practice against that for the end of a half? Right. So again, it just goes back to the Wildcat quarterback in football, giving coaches things to think about. And then for yourself, it gives you different ways to get back into a game. And I tend to think of this in my own mind as special teams in football, right? Like it's not offense, it's not necessarily defense, but being a punt return, a punt block, onside kick, all these things, these little nuances that can change the dynamic and the flow of a game can be really, really important. So
that's good stuff. I find that to be really interesting. All right. Next up, we're going to do what we've done with a few other games this year, a few of the bigger games, which is take a look at the upcoming opponents. So, Trey, let's jump into our UConn preview here.
Yeah. And I just want to start off by saying, I watched some of the clips from last year. And, Rick, I told you earlier today on the phone, a good reminder is, Zach Freeman and Jack Nunge were dang good players, right? And they had some big games, and they did a really good job in their flow last year. And so both teams lost a ton of personnel. UConn obviously being in the national championship. Donovan Clingan is injured right now. They lost Sanogo. It's a lot of new players, a lot of new faces in this game. I mean, Alex Caravan was a little bit of a role player last year. He was the only freshman to start in the Elite Eight, fun fact. And I think I say that to people all the time, kids that I've coached and maybe frustrated going through the college. It's like, one freshman started the Elite Eight. What's that tell you? It's really hard to win and play with freshmen. I think we've seen it at times with Xavier this season. But Caravan, he's taken a big step up, and I'll go ahead and pull up these clips here. And he's definitely the first thing that comes to mind when watching them. Oh, I didn't share that yet, did I? Oh, you can still see mine? We're good?
Yeah, we're good. Yep, we're good.
So, guarding Caravan, I think, is going to be really, really important. And I do have a couple of the clips from last year, right? And you'll see here, okay, Caravan, he's setting a little screen. He's on the top right slot, top right ring near the Colehep Family Court logo. And here he's just screening. Zach's in their normal ball screen coverage for Xavier last year, which he was showing and hedging a lot more aggressive, Zach was. And again, UConn kind of uses that to their advantage. Now Zach's got a long chase to Caravan, right? And it's kind of a wide open three. If that were a switch, right, obviously we'd see Boom just stick with him. But last year with Zach with that aggressive show that they used to use with him quite a bit. Again, UConn, they're looking to create an open three. That's definitely no accident for them on that standpoint. He misses it, but it's a pretty good open look for him at that point in the game. I keep that clip into the offensive rebounding. UConn, one of the best offensive teams in the country, one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country, one of the best transition offensive teams in the country. So keeping those guys off the boards is going to be huge, and I just want to include that clip. But here's Caravan as well. He's running off an off screen, right? He's your typical four-man, power forward, old school, new school basketball, however you want to put it. But again, for a guy like this size to be running off screens is going to be unique. And I think we'll see, different times who's guarding him for Xavier. If it's one of the bigger lineups, is it one of the bigs having to run through screens? Xavier actually closed. I didn't include clips, but they closed the Villanova game with a 4-guard lineup. I don't have the data for this, but I think, Rick, they played more 4 guards in that game than they have all season. So is that going to be a trend going forward? Are we going to see that more to kind of match up with Caravan? Maybe a guy like Dalen Swain is a good matchup. Does he get more minutes for a guy like him? We don't know the answer to that right now, but it's something I'm looking for. First play of the second half of this game, Caravan, ball screen, right? Look at Jerome. He's in a hard show, right? So he's trying to impact the ball. He's trying to impact the ball, push the ball to half court. The problem is with that, you leave Caravan there, right? Again, that's the first play of the half by UConn. It's obviously a design. Okay, that was a 3. Now, Xavier gave up a couple pick and pop threes. Watch Jerome on this clip. It's just a soft show. He just soft shows. He's actually got his hand around Caravan's hip there. He doesn't want to lose him for 3. That's obviously an adjustment Xavier made from that. This is the second play of the half offensively for UConn. So again, Jerome's a smart player defensively. He's able to make that adjustment, and that's the difference in a wide open 3 versus the possession to keep churning. So again, now Caravan in year 2, he's a huge part of their offense. He's averaging, upper 14s, low 15s points per game. They're using him offensively in all kinds of ways. Here's him with the ghost for 3 against Butler. Like I said, he's having a really, really, really good year, and they're doing a lot of the same stuff they did with him last year. But this year it's even more so, just given the graduation of guys like Jordan Hawkins and Sanogo going on to the pros. We talked a lot about UConn, Sanogo being gone, and then Donovan Clingan. Those guys were both monsters last year. They pretty much always had one of those guys on the floor, if I had to guess, just because those 2 players are so good, right? Honestly, they probably were hoping to get them both on the floor at times, but they were both kind of pure 5s. This year, with none of those guys available at the moment, I have no idea, Rick, how long Clingan's out. But the last couple of games they've been without him. They've had Samson Johnson at the 5. And we'll show some clips of him. He's more of a prototypical 5. But they also played Caravan at the 5 in some spurts, right? He's definitely untraditional for a 5, right? Super skilled shooter, not necessarily a super physical rebounder. And I'm not saying that like he's a softy or anything like that. But my point is he's not Sonogo or Klingon, right? And impacting with their size in that way. So in this situation, right, Butler still has their 5 in. Jalen Thomas is a pure 5-man. Now he's matched up with Caravan. It's in transition. And again, you're getting to see Thomas. He closed that a little bit short. He's just a little bit uncomfortable, right? And those are the cross matches that you can create in a game like this. Now, on the other side of the floor, right, Caravan's got to guard Butler's 5. But in this situation here, Butler really struggled to guard Caravan in this situation, right? You'll see UConn's got 4 guards around him. Again, here's Jalen Thomas guarding on the perimeter. And it's a tough shot. It's a tough shot. But at the end of the day here, right, Caravan's just a little bit too comfortable for Butler's liking. And again, that part of that's just playing, him at the 5 and Butler having a traditional 5. He's just not used to guarding a guy out there like that. So Butler ended up countering and playing more 5 guards. Okay. So now you see, okay, they have more of a traditional wing guarding Caravan. They set a ball screen. Okay. This was definitely a set play from UConn. Okay. You want to put a guard on him? No problem. Now they run a little set to go high-low to him. They get the ball screen switch on a little guard. Even if they don't switch, okay, they're still betting that Caravan's going to be able to post that wing from Butler. They go right into him. So really, really good job there by Dan Hurley recognizing it and getting into it. They do a ton of 2-man game with Cam Spencer. Cam Spencer's a transfer from Rutgers. Really good offensive player, good ball handler, good passer, good shooter, good scorer, very complete player. And they put Caravan and Spencer in a ton of 2-man action, right? So here's a screen in the pop, right? Just a really good screen by Caravan, knocks that guy to the floor. That 1 second, split second down on the ground creates a closeout. And again, he can drive it, right? He's not just a big stiff out here. Caravan's a really, really good player. So I think we may see a lot of Dalen Swain on him or maybe some Desmond Claude. Will he be able to post Claude right? We don't know the answer to that for sure. We'll have to see in the game. But again, I think we're going to see more switches against him than anything because he just creates so much havoc. And I do think, again, I might be silly if he drops 30 in this game, but I do think if Xavier goes to 4 guards, they do have some decent personnel to guard a guy like this who's so good offensively. Then in this possession, they put Posh Alexander on him right, who's a point guard. He's tough as nails, but Butler's trying to figure out, okay, he is killing us in every way. How do we guard this guy? And watch Dan Hurley. He's just kind of pointing down to the post. And this isn't even a set. They're just like, okay, you want to put a point guard on Caravan? No problem. We're just going to have him post up, open gym basketball here. Charge the block, right? We can't decide that. Refs end up calling a block on that. But how Xavier guards Caravan is going to be a huge key to the game. Really good player. Samson Johnson, he's taking a lot of their reps at the 5. He's been there for a couple of years. Really athletic 5-man. Just hasn't gotten a lot of minutes because of who they've had there before. But really good player out of high school. He's more of a roll guy and a block shot. He doesn't shoot threes. He's more of a traditional big, right? A little bit skinnier build. But you'll see here he sets a screen. Okay, he's rolling to the rim, and he's rolling for the dunk. UConn does a great job of balancing their offense. Okay, so what do I mean by that is with guys like Klingon, who they've had, right, when he's healthy, guys like Sonogo and guys like Samson Johnson, right? We know a lot about UConn's skill. We know about Cam Spencer. We know a lot about Alex Caravan. They've got Stephen Castle, who's the 5-star McDonald's All-American guard. They've got Tristan Newton, who's kind of a do-it-all scoring guard. But when you have guys like this that can go up and get at the rim, what it does is it puts pressure on your defense to collapse, right? And so in this situation, when he is rolling to the rim, okay, right, as Caravan's trading up to the top, he's on the top corner. He's trading up. Nobody's leaving the roll for him, okay? On the far bottom corner, you have Solo Ball, who's like a top 75 recruit out of high school. He's a freshman, okay? He's still kind of figuring out exactly his role for what he's doing with them. But again, if they attack the roll man here, okay, I believe that's Posh Alexander. He's kind of the Butler defender to the lowest point of the screen. If he helps on Johnson, okay, now you have a wide open kick out to ball for a 3. He's definitely not a non-player, right? He's really talented. He ends up going out. It ends up being a lob up to the rim. And when you have a guy like this that can jump that high in the air, it's kind of like Clint Capella for the Atlanta Hawks. It just puts pressure on your defense to cover different areas of the floor. Again, I go back to the bubble screen analogy in football. If a team only throws the ball deep, you're going to start putting guys deep and rushing the passer. If a team is throwing bubble screens, right, a lot of times or screen passes, that negates that. So to cover these different parts of the court, UConn does a tremendous job of putting pressure on you, making you guard. Like I said, transition. They'll post you when they're healthy. They run good ball screen stuff. They run good off-screen stuff. They hit you in a lot of different ways, and that's why, right, they're one of the best offenses in the country and coming off of a national championship. Same situation here. He's rolling. He's dunking. Now all of a sudden you're worried about a guy like that getting to the rim. You start to help off shooters, right? Now they're going to start kicking for threes in their ideal world. He's also very athletic at the rim as a shot blocker. Again, really long. Just a really talented player. So that's what Xavier's going to be faced with there at the 5 position quite a bit. Here's some Cam Spencer clips. Again, he's been a huge piece of what they do offensively. Really skilled. Again, he's not just a shooter, right? Like he can drive it, he can pass it, he can of course make shots. But here's him in transition. Again, they're really, really effective hunting threes, getting paint touches. Here's more 2-man game with him and Carabin. Carabin's ghosting.
Let me ask you this, because we hear analysts bring this up all the time. Why do we call this 2-man game?
So in this situation, right, this is a little bit organic. And this isn't like a set play. This is more when stuff breaks down. This is what we call their flow, or what they do the play after the play. And so with Carabin and Spencer, they're just I'm sure they've talked about this in practice and film and whatnot. But he's throwing it ahead. He's setting a ghost screen, right? And again, there's gravity. We say that Carabin has gravity to him as a player. Where he moves, like Steph Curry, they say, is ultimate gravity in the NBA. When he's cutting, you're paying attention. He's drawing defenders towards him, right? So again, ghost screen. Doesn't have it. Okay, these 2 players stay playing together. All right, we're just going to go right back to it again. And just this tad bit of confusion here. Okay, again, it's just these 2 guys in the action together. Everybody else is kind of used as a spacer, and you're basically letting these 2 guys, your 2 of your better offensive players play in space. It just, number 10 turns his shoulders with just 1 second of confusion. He's not sure, is Carabin setting the screen? Is it a ghost screen? Whatever. And it allows Spencer to get downhill, get to his spot, and find an open bucket. Here, they use these 2 guys on the top side of the floor in an off-screen situation. So 2-man game doesn't need to just be a ball screen, right? And here you see Carabin, he's setting a flare, okay, for Spencer. So number 1, Spencer's a good shooter, right? You don't want him to just come off a flare and shoot a wide open shot. But he slips, okay? Carabin's he's got really, really good feel. Is this a play call? Is this these 2 are they setting a down screen, letting these 2 guys play? We don't know the answer to that exactly. But Carabin slips, right? Watch both Butler defenders. They go right with him. Because, again, he's a really good player, right? And offense always has the advantage, Rick. And it's like NBA teams talk about it this way. It's an if this, then that world. In the NBA, it's not as many sets as you'll see in college, right? So if they guard it this way, we're going to do this, right? If they're switching, you may slip for a layup, right? If they trail Cam Spencer, he's going to come off and try to hit a 3 or come off and make a play, off the bounce. If they cheat it, you would flare, right? There's a lot of options in a play like this, but they both go Carabin. Again, you got 2 good players. They just know how to play. They're both very savvy, and it creates a wide open closeout and drive for Spencer, right? Because, again, with both players going to Carabin, now, okay, crap, that's Cam Spencer. I don't want him to shoot a 3. You're running at him out of stance. It gets him in a good scoring position. Then here's Spencer down the stretch of this game, 4-point game, 50 seconds, just hits a big shot. Well defended, but good players make big time players make big time plays. He's been a huge addition to what they're doing offensively. Then Stephen Castle, Atlanta kid, McDonald's All-American. He was kind of a point guard in high school. He's not playing pure point guard for UConn right now because they're so loaded at guard, but he is 6'5", 6'6", downhill, athletic, playmaking guard, wing. He's averaging just under 10 points a game right now for them, having a pretty dang good freshman season. So he's going to be a force to reckon with in the years to come, assuming he stays at UConn. And then, again, offensive boards. We've heard Sean Miller talk at times. There's been some displeasure about, the rebounding and the toughness, and that's one of the things he's kind of pointed to, right, that he thinks is pretty important. And in this game, right, UConn was playing Butler. They were down. You'll see they're down 5 here, right, with 1 minute in the first half. They really got themselves going on the offensive board. So, winning this battle or at least neutralizing it, much like the Houston game, is going to be super, super important. I think Miller's going to have his guys definitely, inspired to play on that side of the ball. And I think that's going to be a big point of emphasis for him. And again, we talked about, what are you doing with your practice time if you're a coaching staff? You've got your press. Post trap, maybe not as big of a deal in this game unless they're going to go small on Carabin. Maybe they want to post trap him if it's a Desmond Claude. But offensively, defensively, staying with your schemes, and then you're like, okay, well, this is one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country. We're going to have to bust tough, to just kind of neutralize them and hopefully win that battle, right? That's kind of your goal. But UConn presents a lot of problems. They're a really good team, one of the best teams in the country. So it's going to be an exciting matchup, and we'll see what they do and how successful they end up being. So
yeah, definitely good stuff there. Donovan Clingan, I know it's questionable still whether or not he plays. They said he was kind of doing some stuff with their last shoot around, but I don't know that he's like actually fully participating or anything yet. So just going to remain up in the air probably until game time. No sense to give Xavier any sense of what's going on with him before that game tips off. So we'll all find that one out together, I would assume. But obviously he makes a huge difference whether or not they have their star 7'2" center in there or not. But I think that was good. Samson Johnson's guy that's kind of filling in a lot for him. Cam Spencer's been a big addition for them. Alex Carabin's progress has kind of added a new element to them as well. So what Tristan Newton brings from last season. He's still the same guy in a lot of ways. So I think that was a good review of what Xavier's up against UConn. Any final thoughts here, Trey?
No final thoughts, right? I think the moral story is coaching is hard. You got to make a lot of adjustments game in and game out, and all the little intricacies and who you're going to play and how much you're going to play them and what kind of adjustments and how much time do you spend preparing for if Klingen's in there and if he's in there, is he healthy? There's just so much thought that goes into this. And so like we kind of mentioned from the very top, my conclusion is when you have more time to digest information, you're going to see more adjustments. And now, we're going to see them in the thick of, that's why these conference seasons are an absolute grind, because when it's going to be tougher now to make, wholesale adjustments, and they'll do that, right, if they feel like they need to. But that's definitely my main takeaway here from these last couple of weeks.
All right. Great stuff. Once again, Trey, always appreciate you doing these deep dives into what's going on with Xavier basketball. And of course, as I mentioned, every time you are here in town in Cincinnati. So if you're a local person and you have kids, or you're a college athlete, high school athlete yourself, and you want to get some workouts with Trey or pick his brain a little bit on the basketball side of things, you can reach out to him on social media. I'll post his Twitter link in the message board, and also you can reach out to me if you need his contact information. I can set you up with him, so be sure to look out for that. Everything going well with the basketball workouts right now?
Everything's going great. Everything's going great. It looks like you need to get in there a little bit yourself, so
no question.
Maybe 6 a.m. tomorrow, but no, everything's going great. Can't complain. So Cincinnati's been really good to me back, this last half year or so. So just looking forward to keep doing it and watching basketball, being involved, and just appreciate the opportunity to be on here again. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Trey. And thanks to all you for watching. We will see you after this UConn game.